Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into the really extraordinary and often, well, frankly, bizarre career of Jon Ronson. He's that British-American journalist, author, filmmaker. You know the one.
Yeah, and our mission today, it's pretty specific. We want to really get under the hood of how Ronson operates,
Right.
what's his system. He's become this go-to guide for the world's weirdest corners, and we're aiming to go beyond just summarizing his books.
You're right.
We're trying to dissect his whole investigative approach, that faux naive character thing he talks about. It's what lets him into places most journalists would just get the door slammed in their face.
That's absolutely the core of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does someone jump from, say, investigating militant extremists 1 minute to corporate psychopaths the next, and then on to psychic military experiments, all while keeping that same distinctive, slightly baffled kind of voice? And the sources we've got stacked up here, it's incredibly comprehensive. We're talking 9 books, decades of stuff for major outlets like The Guardian, loads of TV and radio, and of course those big film adaptations.
He often gets tagged as a gonzo journalist, right? That very participatory, story-driven style. But he mixes it with this sort of light-touch skepticism. His signature is definitely that faux naif thing. He's always informal, but intensely curious.
Yeah.
And it makes these deep dives into really controversial fringe politics and science seem almost, easy. Effortless, even.
And the genius there, I think, is that he refuses to be the judge or, the ultimate expert piping up. He's more like the listener's stand-in, the slightly overwhelmed guide navigating these strange lands of the radical fringe.
Exactly.
So for you listening in, Ronson's career is just a total masterclass in uncovering those really hidden stories, getting past the shouty headlines to connect these, crazy-sounding ideas that actually have real-world impact, sometimes systemic impact. Okay, so let's unpack this really unique career, starting with how that foundational style, the faux naive thing, was kind of forged back in the UK media scene.
Right. So his origin story, it starts in Cardiff, Wales. Born there, May 10th, 1967, went to Cardiff High School.
Okay.
And his first taste of media was actually working for CBC Radio right there in Cardiff, so he got comfortable with audio storytelling pretty early on.
Ah, interesting. But the big move was London, wasn't it? For that media degree at the Polytechnic of Central London, PCL.
Yeah, that was pivotal. That mix of, theory and practice, it really set the stage for his big break in journalism, where he basically became the main character in his own stories.
Right, and that came through Time Out magazine.
Exactly. He got his initial, widespread fame writing a column for Time Out. And crucially, this wasn't just, him writing opinions. It was based on these kind of wild, often really awkward challenges he set for himself.
Right, participatory.
Yeah, he was establishing that pattern early, infiltrating things.
Can you give an example? I remember reading about some of the crazier ones.
Well, yeah, there was the time he managed to talk his way into a job at a major London law firm, knowing absolutely nothing about law.
No way. How?
Just by adopting this, confident, maybe slightly unhinged persona, he was deliberately putting himself into these high-pressure situations he was totally unqualified for, just to see what happened, documenting the chaos, basically.
That sounds like pure Ronson.
And that column, that highly personal style, it translated almost immediately to TV. There was that BBC Two series, The Ronson Mission, back in '93.
Yes.
And his first book, Clubbed Class, followed right after 1994. That really put the style down in print.
Clubbed Class. That's the one where he bluffs his way into the jet-set life, isn't it? Trying to find the ultimate holiday.
That's the one. It's fascinating because he wasn't rich or anything, but he convinced all these high society types that he belonged. The whole thing was an exercise in, deception, but rooted in genuine curiosity.
So he's infiltrating this privileged world using a fake persona. It's exactly the template he uses later with, cult leaders and extremists.
Precisely. And this period really cemented him as a regular contributor everywhere. The Guardian, obviously, where his later columns about his home life and stuff became really popular. City Life, Time Out again.
So people started recognizing the how as much as the what. That slightly bemused, wide-eyed thing.
Yeah, that was becoming his brand.
Okay, let's dig into that methodology a bit more. The faux naif approach.
Yeah.
You said it's not just a quirk, it's tactical. How does showing up looking slightly baffled actually help when you're talking to, say, a dangerous extremist?
Well, it's the ultimate way to disarm someone, isn't it? If you march in like you already know they're completely nuts, they just clam up.
Right. Defenses go up.
Exactly. But Ronson comes in seeming genuinely bewildered, but also, crucially, open to the possibility that they might have a point. He gives them the benefit of the doubt, at least initially.
Ah, so they feel heard. Respected, even.
Yeah. And that encourages them to really unpack their worldview, you know? And often in doing that, they reveal the vulnerabilities or the human motivations behind the extreme ideas.
So his curiosity is like an invitation, not a weapon. He lets them lead him even down their own, maybe illogical paths.
Yeah.
Until he sees the connection.
Exactly. Until he's ready to link their little story to some bigger societal truth. Publishers Weekly really nailed this when they reviewed them. They said what's remarkable is how he reveals the all-too-real machinations of Western society's radical fringe.
By not doing a hard-nosed expose.
Right. It's more like a gentle, skeptical unwrapping of the story from the inside. He gets people to kind of volunteer their own contradictions, often without realizing it.
Okay, so that investigative template, that brings us straight to book number 2, the really iconic one, Them. Adventures with Extremists. That was 2001.
Yeah, this is where he properly cemented that reputation for diving into the ridiculous and finding it secretly tied to something, well, shockingly serious.
The core quest of Them is. He's trying to infiltrate the shadowy cabal, right? The one conspiracy theorists think rules the world.
Pretty much. It reads like an adventure story, really.
Yeah.
The conspiracy itself is almost the main character, and Ronson's like the detective following this trail that might lead absolutely nowhere.
Or it might lead to a secret meeting in the woods somewhere.
Or, yeah, like the Bilderberg group meeting. And the people he actually met for that book, I mean, the list is just staggering. It's the whole spectrum of fringe paranoia. People who exist way outside polite society, but sometimes have a very real influence.
Who are we talking about specifically?
Well, there's David Icke.
Ah, the lizard guy.
The lizard guy, yeah. But Ronson treats him not just as, crazy, but as this fascinating figure trying to piece together these incredibly complex, elaborate ideas. Then there was Randy Weaver.
From Ruby Ridge?
Yeah, the white separatist from the Ruby Ridge standoff. He met Omar Bakri Muhammad, the militant Islamist preacher, Ian Paisley, the controversial Northern Irish politician.
And didn't he meet Alex Jones way back then, too?
He did. That's a really relevant detail now, isn't it? He interviewed Alex Jones and Thomas Robb from the Ku Klux Klan. This was when Jones was genuinely a fringe figure, like literally shouting with a bullhorn outside Bilderberg meetings.
Wow. So Ronson was there documenting the seed of that movement.
Absolutely. He describes following these independent investigators who are obsessed with groups like Bilderberg. He captures their, desperate intensity, but also points out how sometimes, surprisingly, they get kind of close to these hidden power structures.
So when he met Jones, Jones was basically a street activist.
Yeah, pretty much. And Ronson's narrative really captured that foundational psychology, the thing that would later make Jones such a huge and often, let's face it, dangerous figure in American media.
Louis Theroux, who kind of fishes in similar waters journalism-wise, he called them a funny and compulsively readable, picaresque adventure.
That sums it up perfectly. It's funny because it's so absurd until you suddenly realize the depth of belief and the real world, sometimes violent connections these people have.
And the book clearly hit a nerve. Universal bought the film rights back in 2005.
Yeah, which shows how marketable his whole blend of the bizarre and the serious had become, even if, ironically, other books got adapted first.
Right. But Ronson didn't just stick with civilian conspiracy theorists, did he? He found out the government was doing stuff that sounded just as weird.
Well, exactly. That leads straight into his next big project, his third book, The Men Who Stare at Goats, from 2004. This one shifts gears completely. He goes from citizen extremists right into the inner workings of the shadow military.
The 1st Earth Battalion.
Specifically, yeah. A secret New Age unit inside the U.S. Army called the 1st Earth Battalion.
Okay, the military doing New Age stuff. That sounds like parody, but it was real.
Oh, totally real. Ronson documents how the U.S. military was seriously looking into psychic warfare, remote viewing, enhancing human potential. He connects the dots between, 70s hippie optimism and actual classified military budgets.
It's the specifics that make it so memorable, though. Stubblebine.
Major General Albert Stubblebine, III, former head of intelligence, and this guy genuinely believed, with enough mental focus, he could walk through walls.
Seriously?
Yeah, Ronson even details his attempts. Apparently, they often ended with him just, running into the wall and getting bruised.
Oh my God. And the goats. The actual staring at goats part.
Right, the title image. The idea was that soldiers could be trained to kill goats just by staring at them, stopping their hearts with mental energy.
Which is, I mean, it's a ridiculous image.
It is, but it highlights the kind of desperate lengths the military was exploring, especially after Vietnam, trying to find new edges, non-lethal psychological weapons, that kind of thing.
And this all came from one guy's manual.
Pretty much inspired by Lieutenant Colonel Jim Channon. He wrote the first Earth Battalion Operations Manual back in '79. He was heavily into the whole human potential movement coming out of California.
So it wasn't a standard military text.
Not at all. It talked about an army of warrior monks using peace and psychic stuff before actually fighting.
Okay, but here's the crucial bit, right? The connection to something serious. Ronson suggests these New Age ideas somehow influenced interrogation techniques later on, like at Guantanamo.
That's the broader implication, yeah. He suggests that the focus on psychological manipulation, isolation, sensory stuff, that some of those concepts, which started out in this weird New Age military context, later mutated and perhaps informed some of the darker techniques used in the War on Terror.
That feels like the classic Ronson move. Find the eccentric belief from decades ago.
Trace it through the system.
And show how it eventually manifests as this dark, systemic policy. He shows you the human chain of command that allows a wacky idea about psychic spies to become, well, weaponized.
Exactly. He finds the through line.
Now, the film adaptation in 2009, that took some liberties, didn't it? Made it more of an Iraq road trip movie.
Yeah, it fictionalized his investigation quite a bit. The main journalist character, Bob Wilton, played by Ewan McGregor, who was American, and he actually went to Iraq in the film.
Whereas Ronson's actual reporting was more sitting in archives.
Pretty much. He talked about this on the DVD commentary, apparently. The difference between his real work, often awkward, sitting in dusky archives or labs, and the Hollywood version of the cool, adventurous journalist.
Okay, so from military secrets and extremists, Ronson then pivots again. He looks inward towards clinical mysteries with the Psychopath test.
Yeah, his fifth book, The Psychopath Test, A Journey Through the Madness Industry from 2011. This was a really profound shift, looking into mental illness and how we classify behavior.
And for this one, he basically had to become a student of psychology himself, right? Learning the hair psychopathy checklist.
He did. He learned how to actually apply the hair psychopath checklist, which is, the gold standard diagnostic tool created by Dr. Robert Hare.
And then he just went out and used it.
Pretty much. He interviews people across this huge spectrum. He goes into facilities for the criminally insane, where you'd sort of expect to find a clinical psychopath. But then he also uses the checklist to investigate potential psychopaths in corporate boardrooms among powerful figures.
Yeah.
Exploring that whole idea of the successful psychopath.
The idea that the same traits that land one person in jail, like glibness, charm, no empathy, being manipulative, are the exact same traits that help someone else climb the corporate ladder or get elected.
Exactly. That contrast is the core of the book. The hair checklist, the PCLR, it scores about 20 items. Pathological lying, lack of remorse, callousness, stuff like that. Ronson's journey is about what happens when you, the observer, start seeing the world through that specific lens.
The world starts to look full of psychopaths.
Kind of, yeah. But this is where his approach, that popular story-driven investigation, really slammed into a wall with the scientific establishment. We have to talk about the controversy.
Yeah, this was a big one.
It really was. This is where that tension between Ronson's style and proper scientific rigor just blew up. The Society for the Scientific Study of Psychopathy formally rejected his findings, or rather, his application of the tool. They felt he was, trivializing the whole diagnostic process.
And Dr. Hare himself wasn't happy either, the guy who made the test.
Not at all. He publicly rejected the book, called it frivolous, shallow, and professionally disconcerting. That's not just a mild disagreement. That's a pretty damning critique from the creator of the very tool Ronson was using.
Okay, so that raises a serious question, doesn't it? If the creator of the test called it frivolous, does that mean Ronson's technique, while super engaging to read, sacrifices real rigor just to tell a good story? Is he sensationalizing mental illness?
It's a really fair challenge. I mean, Ronson's definitely not a clinician, but maybe the value wasn't in him perfectly applying the diagnostic tool. Maybe it was more about exploring the story of classification itself, the whole madness industry, as the subtitle says.
So he's looking at how the labels get used and who benefits. Less about the clinical accuracy, more about the social function.
Perhaps. He forces you to think about how these labels are applied and the blurry line between, say, a clinical disorder and just being a truly awful boss. He kind of challenged the neat separation between the sane world and the insane one.
Okay, focusing on the industry around madness, not just the madness itself, that makes sense as a distinction.
It's a useful way to frame it, I think.
So, moving on a few years, Ronson takes that same eye for, maybe, societal cruelty and points it right at us right now. So you've been publicly shamed in 2015.
Yeah, this was another major pivot. He moves away from the extreme fringe, the extremists, the psychic soldiers, and looks smack bang into the middle of modern digital life, social dynamics.
The focus here is just the devastating effect of public humiliation online, right?
Exactly, the mechanism of it in the internet age. For you listening, this book is arguably his most directly relevant to life today. It's a masterclass in understanding current affairs, social media dynamics.
He looks at specific people whose lives were just ruined, right? By a single tweet, maybe a bad joke that went viral.
Yeah, precisely. He documents the sheer cruelty of the anonymous online mob, how quickly the internet goes from collective outrage to just forgetting, leaving the person completely stranded, often with irreparable damage, lost jobs, homes, relationships.
Over something that maybe didn't even warrant that level of punishment.
Often, yeah. And the common thread, connecting this back to his earlier work, it's still there. It's still an investigation into unexpected power structures. But here, the power structure is that collective, anonymous, overwhelming force of the internet mob.
Which acts with this frighteningly unified certainty, kind of like the extremists he wrote about earlier.
It's a similar kind of self-righteous certainty, definitely.
We should probably quickly mention his collections too, right? The Guardian column.
Oh yeah, definitely. They show a lighter side. Out of the Ordinary, True Tales of Everyday Craziness from 2006, and What I Do, more True Tales of Everyday Craziness in 2007. Lots of funny observations about his own domestic life in those.
And Lost at Sea. The Jon Ronson Mysteries in 2012 was another collection.
Yeah, another compilation. It just shows the sheer volume of writing he was doing, even outside the big book projects.
So if the books define his subjects, maybe his radio and film work define his voice and reach. He seems like a real media polymath.
Absolutely. His UK radio career was huge. That BBC Radio 4 program, Jon Ronson on, that was really well respected, nominated for a Sony Award 4 times. It showed he could translate that written curiosity perfectly into audio.
And the documentaries mirrored the books. I remember one with Robbie Williams.
Yeah, Robbie Williams and Jon Ronson Journey to the Other Side from 2008 focused on Robbie's, genuine obsession with UFOs and the paranormal. Ronson's brilliant at pairing a famous, seemingly normal person with a really fringe topic.
And that success translated to the U.S. too, This American Life.
Oh, big time. He became a really influential contributor over there. I think by 2021, he'd done segments for at least 13 episodes, bringing his style to millions of American listeners.
And those segments were often like mini versions of his books, weren't they? Condensed emotional takes on the big investigation.
Exactly. Episodes like Them, The Psychopath Test, Tarred and Feathered. They showed he could take these complex, often ethically tricky subjects and boil them down into compelling audio stories. Perfect for that narrative audio boom.
Which leads naturally into podcasting.
Yep. His first big one was The Butterfly Effect in 2017. That was about internet porn, focusing on Fabian Tillman and the whole Pornhub effect on the industry. Again, huge topic anchored by one human story.
Then The Last Days of August in 2019, looking into the death of August Ames. That felt more like true crime.
It was definitely investigative, yeah. Looking at the human cost within that industry.
And more recently, back with the BBC for Things Fell Apart.
Yeah, 2021. A BBC Sounds podcast digging into the origins of the culture wars. Classic Ronson style, again, not just analyzing the current mess, but finding the quirky human roots of these huge societal divides.
Okay, beyond audio, the film stuff gives another angle. We mentioned Goats, but he actually wrote screenplays too.
He did. Selling the Goats rights led to the 2009 film, but apparently visiting the set of that film is what sparked him to collaborate with Peter Strone on writing something else.
Which became Frank, the 2014 black comedy.
That's the one. A masterpiece of weirdness. And it's partly inspired by Ronson's own life. His time playing keyboards in the Frank Sidebottom band back in the late 80s.
Wait, Frank Sidebottom, the guy with the giant papier-mâché head.
The very same. Ronson was right there, immersed in that high-level artistic eccentricity way early on. Apparently, he replaced Mark Radcliffe on keyboards.
No way. So his comfort with strangeness isn't just journalistic, it's rooted in experience.
Seems like it. And that film work led to more collaborations, too. He co-wrote the screenplay for Ocha, the Netflix film. with Bong Joon-ho.
The Korean director.
Wow.
Yeah, the 2017 one. And we shouldn't forget his own documentary series work, stuff that often came before the books. The Secret Rulers of the World in 2001 and Crazy Rulers of the World in 2004.
Crazy Rulers. That's had the goat stuff in it, right? Exactly. It included the 3 parts directly related to the goat's research, the title episode, Funny Torture, and the Psychic Foot Soldiers. It shows how he constantly feeds his research between books, TV, radio. It's a whole ecosystem.
And just looping back to music quickly, besides Frank Sidebottom, he managed an indie band, too.
Yeah, The Man from Del Monte, a Manchester indie band. That whole background in indie culture, the Manchester scene, it probably informs his comfort zone when he's dealing with all kinds of eccentric people, whether they're artists or generals.
Okay, so before we wrap up with takeaways, maybe a few personal details, just to place the man behind the microphone.
Sure. Well, he's married to Elaine Patterson. They've got 1 son. And his home life often pops up in those charming Guardian columns.
And his background, Jewish.
Yeah.
Humanist.
Yeah, he's Jewish and also a distinguished supporter of Humanists UK. So there's a commitment to secular ethics there, which maybe helps his impartiality when he's dealing with really ideological subjects.
And for the sports fans listening,
he's a big Arsenal fan, apparently expresses adoration for the club, which feels like a surprisingly normal detail for someone who hangs out with lizard theorists.
Ah, true. And he's officially American now, too.
Yeah, became a naturalized U.S. citizen in early 2020. So British-American journalist fits perfectly, gives him perspective on both sides of the pond, maybe.
So if we try and synthesize all this work from club class in '94, bluffing his way into high society, right up to the Culture Wars podcasts, there's a real consistency there, isn't there? It's all about access.
Yeah, that's his core skill, making these dense, extreme, or just hidden subcultures somehow accessible to the average person, finding a way into the locked rooms, whether they contain conspiracy nuts, psychic spies, or, debates about clinical madness.
And the common thread running through all of it, the cabals, the shame machine, the military secrets, it seems to be finding the humanity, right? The unexpected, vulnerable connections inside these topics that seem monstrous or just plain crazy.
Definitely. He's always looking for the real people behind the scary headlines, and crucially, how they justify their own actions and beliefs to themselves.
It feels like Ronson's telling us the world isn't neatly divided into sane and insane or normal and extremist.
Right. More like we're all on a spectrum somewhere. And maybe the only difference sometimes is how much power you have or how big your audience is.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What does all this mean for you, the listener, trying to get a handle on Ronson's huge body of work? It feels like his career offers a really powerful model for investigating things, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If you connect it to the bigger picture, his whole career just shows the incredible power of curiosity over, say, narrow specialization. He reports on the extraordinary by appearing ordinary.
He's the reliable guide through the noise.
Exactly. Through overwhelming, often contradictory information. He doesn't need to be the expert on psychopathy or military strategy to tell the essential human story of the people defined by those things.
He gives us the story of how people convince themselves of impossible things or why we reacted to online shame with such cruelty. He makes us look in the mirror, whether we think we're normal or fringe.
And that duality, the skeptic journalist wearing the mask of the curious novice, that's his signature move. It maximizes his access, minimizes confrontation. It's a really delicate dance.
A dance between staying objective and making a real human connection.
Yeah.
So Ronson's career, it's shown us the vulnerable, often just deeply eccentric people behind the big, scary headlines about extremism, madness, secret military stuff. For you, the listener, maybe the question we leave you with is this. If that faux naïf approach really is the key to getting these complex characters to open up, to reveal their hidden worlds, how much of our own skepticism, our own sort of protective cynicism do we need to maybe just temporarily suspend in order to really understand the world's most hidden, most contradictory corners?
That is definitely a thought worth thinking about next time you read a story that just seems too strange to be true. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.